So I know Trevor and Lexi came in recently, and one of the things that they said that you would always tell them, we were having a breakfast with them, is that you would always say, teach less and laugh more. And you talked a little bit about it last night with a few people backstage. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what that means to you and over the history of your business, what you've seen?
Well, I'd be glad to, Dennis. Thank you, and just appreciate you, buddy. It's been fun. Laugh a lot, teach a little. You know, here's the truth. Here's the reality. And first of all, can I just say, for those of you that were out at the pool, we have drained ourselves of all of our information for you people out there at the pool the last couple of days. So hopefully we can reach down real deep and give you some good content here. But it was great to be with all of you out there, and congratulations for those of you that were there. Give yourself a hand. You're amazing. It was fun. Yeah, I'm a big believer in making this business fun and something that people would like to do, you know. I mean, people's lives are already very, very busy. We all, you know, I would think most everybody has a full-time job or jobs, and that this comes into our life, and it really the intention is for this to be a part-time start. You know, someday down the road, you may have choices where you can make better decisions about what you do with your time. But initially for us, it was part-time. Joya still maintained her job. But you get to do this with your free time, your social time. So if we make this time even more, more like, oh my God, it's meeting after meeting, or it's just constant pounding of teaching. I mean, let's all agree with one thing. This has got to be the most simple business plan in general than you could ever find. I also think it's the most common sense plan that I've ever seen in my life. Pure common sense. And I love it how people use the phrase, man, that's just common sense, and how little common sense there really is out there in the world we live in today. So I have watched and I've observed people that are all about teaching and teaching and teaching, and I've taken it upon myself to try to be the one that sort of to lighten the air, because I think at the end of the day, you want them wanting more. At the end of the day, you want them wanting to be around you more. You want them enjoying their time with you. And so Trevor's a major teacher. So I've had to say to Trevor, learn to relate to people. I don't have any other counsel on him on the X's and O's of how to build a business. But my comments to him would be, man, learn to relate to more people and make sure your group laughs as much as they, are getting intense, drama, information. Because there's information, but I think that we can make this fun. Probably the best example I know is Brad Duncan. There's no way he'll talk about something serious and without you even knowing it, he throws in a zinger and you find yourself rolling on the ground. So it's a skill, really. I mean, I don't think I had that skill necessarily to begin with, but I've learned how to do it. I've learned how to teach, love, and laugh. I've learned how to do that, right? So it's not always about just, I think if you heard us out at the pool or anything we set up here, I've always tried to say, look, guys, don't make this thing, don't mess with your brain. This is very, very simple, and it's very common sense. So make it fun. Laugh a lot, teach a little, and have your group want to enjoy being around, right? For the long haul and long term.
Teach, love, and laugh. I hope you got that. That's powerful. That's powerful.
Okay.
So Joya, I know you talked last night about not talking much. And how did you break out of that shell? How did you develop into the powerful leader that you are, and you stand on stage and you just exude confidence? How do you feel that developed over time?
So like I mentioned last night, there was a time when people thought I was a foreign exchange student because I didn't talk. They didn't even know I could speak English because I was just quiet. I was happy being quiet. I was fine. But because I became a dental hygienist, I never took a class on personal development, and there was no reason for me to have to talk more. When you're cleaning somebody's teeth, you're wearing a mask, your hands are in their mouth, no one can really talk, right? And so there was no reason for me to learn those skills. Once we got in this business, my dream was bigger than my fear of talking. We even had our very best friends. I mean, there was a couple that we did everything with. That they were our first person we sponsored, Larry and Julie Koning. He was an OBGYN, she was a neonatal nurse. They were our very best friends. We used to joke that we were going to get one big house and we were going to split it down the middle and live in it together because we did so much together. When we went silver was our first time that I could actually, they were going to give us the mic on stage at a recognition at a rally and give us, 2 minutes to say something. And our very best friend said, "What's Joya going to say?" Because I just didn't really talk. But my dream was bigger than my fear, and it was just a personal development issue. It was reading, it was my association. So I started listening to the audios and listening to the diamonds and wanting to get that diamond state of mind and wanting to build this business. And so I could sit, we talked about this in the pool, I could sit across from one couple and I could talk with them. But then once they brought somebody, I was out of my comfort zone again. So I had to push through it. And now I could talk to 2 couples. Pretty soon there was like 4 of us. Then pretty soon there was 8 of us. Then pretty soon we had a whole table at a restaurant. Then pretty soon we had the whole section at a restaurant. And it grew, right? Those people skills and constantly being pushed out of my comfort zone and having a reason to get pushed out of my comfort zone grew as we built our business. It's not like I sat at home and read and listened and learned skills and then went out and built the business. It happened through being forced to. So I was kind of forced to. And then it just became, this is what we love to do. I mean, it became a love, actually, to talk. And it's something that I'm not afraid of. I'm not afraid to get up on stage and talk, which is kind of funny, coming from where I came from. My mom was a speaker for our church, and she spoke all over the world in kingdoms and superdomes and everything. So we would watch her, but we would just be quiet, right? I could hear her. So I think it was something that was probably in me that was like, oh, well, I can do that if I have a reason to learn to do it, right? And I just had that reason. And every single one of you have a reason to learn to get out of that comfort zone. Plus, I thought, there's no way that I'm going to spend the rest of my life being totally shy and timid and quiet and not live the kind of life I want to live. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life doing that.
Wow, that's incredible. Absolutely. Give a hand. I relate to that so much because I was deathly afraid to speak in front of anybody, but I didn't want to stay that way. And so I relate to that so much. This is one that's just popping into my head because you get it a lot when you're second generation, right? Is people think it was easier for you. And, coming from actual coaching Trevor and Lexi, as well as the rest of the people on your team, but specifically in their case, where is the line between doing too much for someone and too little? Because, a lot of times people might have thought it was easier for us, but actually Vinny and Dana did less for us than they probably do for anybody else because they weren't worried about us quitting. So they let us go out and make a lot more mistakes. So what was that like watching? Because sometimes it's tough as an upline to watch someone make mistakes, and when you could do it better than them, but they'll never learn it unless they do it. How did you balance that?
That is a great question. One of the most difficult things for us, we overcame it, but one of the most difficult things for us was the fact that Trevor and Summer lived in our home, so we had to be involved more in their pain of building the business than we did with, say, an IBO that we sponsored that had their own home and family. I mean, it was back in the day when we used to do pickup and call in. Trevor would have his call-in moment for his upline to call in for things, and the phone wouldn't ring. Joya and I would be in the other room. We dreaded Tuesdays. Tuesday nights was Trevor's call-in, and it would be like, and some of you don't learn what I'm talking about because we probably will never go back to those days. But when Tuesday night would come, we would just pray that there would be one phone ring. And some nights he didn't get it, the phone didn't ring at all. And we were like going, oh, not tonight, please.
Like nobody in his group ordered.
Nobody in his group ordered, and it was like.
Call in and order.
But it's important to know that we believe that you don't do for somebody what they can do for themselves. Yeah. To a point, at some point, where you've given them enough information, you've modeled for them enough, I'm not saying we kick people out of the nest, because we never do. We're there to encourage and love on and whatever. But in Trevor's case and in Summer's case, they are the strong leaders, as you are and your brother, that they are today because we didn't coddle. I can tell you many times where Trevor would come to me and he'd say, well, the one person I was working with, didn't show up. I wasn't necessarily real passionate or compassionate for him. I used to just say, next. And maybe that helped him. Maybe he got mad, but he went out and he found the next person. And all in all, they have become the leaders they are today because we didn't coddle them, which I don't think your mom and dad did the same. We didn't lessen the load or the burden. They had to go through in order to be the leaders they are today, which all of you have to recognize where you start's where you start. You can build the skill and the perseverance and the capacity to be the leader, the great leader that I believe God intends you to be, if you would lead yourself first. You got to learn how to lead yourself first. Then you got to learn how to lead your team. Then you need to learn how to be great leaders within an organization. And if you will just do that, as we let our kids do, and frankly speaking, we let most of our leaders go out and figure it out. And that's how, if you came to me now, I'd say, well, you got to go figure it out. Somebody says, well, tell me what to say. You got to go figure it out. You got to go through it. Trevor doesn't say the things I say, and I don't say the things he says. He had to figure out what worked for him. All leaders have to figure out what works for them. And at the end of the day, when you figure it out, it's kind of a great moment, because now you're not, confused anymore. You're like out there, you know who you are, you know what you're in, and you know where you're going, and you use your upline to bounce perspective off of and look from a 50,000 foot level as to whether you're going fully in the right direction or if you're letting a few things go that need to get shored up. And to me, we handled our kids correctly by giving them complete space to make mistakes. And yet when they needed us, they could count on us. We were there. We weren't going to abandon them. Quickly, Trevor met Lexi and Summer met Matt, and they were out on their own. And right now, Trevor and Lexi have the business they have because they went through it. And by the way, I said last night from stage, Trevor didn't have sphere of influence much when he started, because everybody he knew was either in our group or not, or was already in or not going to get in. So everybody he grew up with was already sort of either not going to do it or they were already in our organization. So he had to go from scratch, more or less, and build his business. And he and Lexi became determined to figure out what worked for those two. As we see Matt and Summer, our founders, Double Eagle Ruby's daughter and her husband, they're doing the exact same thing, and we're there for them. We don't interfere. If they have questions, they ask us. Meanwhile, we're mom and dad, and if they want to ask us business questions, we're there. It's just been the best decision we could possibly make, in terms of not pushing. Did we push our kids? No. They wanted to do it. They wanted to build a business, and what a blessing.
Well, they fell in love with our heroes. So as they were young and growing up, they heard us talking about all the diamonds and Dave Severn and Bill Hawkins and Bill Britt and all these. I have some of the funnest pictures with Trevor and Bill Britt having fun. Bill loved Trevor.
Yeah.
And, how we loved those diamonds and what they were doing for their families and what we were trying to do for our families, our kids fell in love with them. I mean, that's all I can say. Our kids fell in love with them, which made them fall in love with this business. And we made them move out. They had to go to college for a year. They had to live in a dorm for a year. And then they could decide if they were going to go on in college or if they were going to build this business. I mean, it had to be their decision. It can't be ours. It can't be yours. Keep telling your kids, you're going to build a business. Well, when you build a business, I mean, our kids, that had to be their choice. It has to come from inside, because it's not an act. This is a heart business and a relationship business. So it had to come from inside of them, but it had to be their own decision when they were ready to do it. And for both of them, for Trevor and for Summer, they both moved out of the house, then decided after a year, start building their business.
Were there some times of frustration that you had to experience? I can imagine Trevor being somebody who could get pretty frustrated at times. Because a lot of us have business partners, and ourselves included, get frustrated at many moments in the business. But to experience it as an upline and watch someone else's frustration, especially when it's your kids, how did you navigate through that?
Well, as an upline, our responsibility is to normalize the struggle. That's it. I mean, I'm reminded one time in particular where in the very beginning, this isn't through his run, this is very beginning, my son had tears in his eyes because he couldn't get anybody to come with him. I don't know why I'm tearing up, but you think about it, it's like you're thinking, man, I want to make it easier, but that would be a mistake because nobody made it easier for me and us. And here he was in an In-N-Out burger. Was that an In-N-Out burger night? And we were sitting in there and he just was like, is anybody gonna listen? And it was just like, wow.
He was crying, Summer was crying, we were crying, everybody was crying.
I think we've all cried at some point.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with crying, I mean, sometimes you just have to let it out so you can wake up the next morning and get right back on it and keep going. But we've all been through it. There's times where we wanted to kill somebody, but we didn't. I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. I mean.
Well, I know that you would tell him, you'd say, Trevor, Ron Pereira, I talked to Ron, and Ron said, just keep showing the plan.
Yeah,
I talked to Bill. Bill just said, keep showing the plan. Trevor, I talked to God. He said, just keep showing the plan.
Yeah. All I can tell you is God has a plan that probably most of us in this room have not finished. And that is your best you and the greatness that can come out of you if you really want it bad enough to change and grow and develop into becoming the person you should be, right? And you're not going to do that just by just willy-nilly going down the road, just amusement here and all the stuff. I mean, I get it. Life can be fun too, and we want to have fun as we go through it. But if you could just focus for a period of time in your life and in this career on you, that is building your vision and then allowing yourself to go through whatever fire which can turn you into something new, if you will, and give you the confidence that everybody's looking for, because you won't have it initially necessarily. But if you just allow the time and not be so short-term thinking and be more long-term thinking. When I say long-term, I'm talking about, say, a 5-year run, all in, not a lifetime like most jobs, but a 5-year run, all in, part-time, where you're gonna take it in the chin, build a little bit of grit. Michael calls it DOG, dream, attitude, work habit, and grit. And people ask me, what's the common denominator? I think it's grit, because they are absolutely not going to be denied. I'm not going to be denied. I can do this, and I'm going to keep going. And the rewards at the end are more than financial, I promise you. I mean, money's there, but it's way more than financial. It's a life well lived, which is what I think every single one of us want to do. So,
dog. You were spelling it out, and I'm going D-O-G. These letters aren't adding up. Anybody else? No, Now I get it. D-A-W-G. I got like dog. All right, we got it. I got it.
It was a spelling error.
Yeah.
Dog.
Right? Oh man. So I heard you yesterday. You were saying something. You're just like, this business is so simple, and I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way. That there's so many people that are so talented. They work jobs that they have to do incredible things at.
I know.
And then they're nervous to make a contact or do a meet and greet. And it's like, I've been telling them, don't put a meet and greet and networking on a pedestal. It's not a big deal. Take it off the pedestal. how do you help people find that simplicity? I can't be the only one. Do you feel like this with a lot of people in your organization and in Worldwide, that they're just making it way more complicated than it needs to be?
You want to answer that one, or you want me? Okay, so here's the deal. We're all people, right? Why is it that it's so difficult for you to start with something as simple as hi? That's it. When it comes to beginning a conversation with somebody, when we launch a brand new person, we're not trying to get them to know everything, and it's not what it is. You're talking about who you're working with anyway. But let's start with this. Let's start with, hi, how are you? Live around here? What do you do? And that conversation may never go anywhere, but what that conversation is doing is it's allowing you to expand your sphere, your edge of fear past a certain, you're working it so that your fear of even walking into a room and saying hi to somebody, you eliminate that one first. And then you eliminate and by the way, you go, hi, how you doing? And I don't know where that goes. I have no idea. I don't know, did I share this last night? I don't remember everything that I shared last night, but I think he did. I talked about Trevor walking through a grocery store, right? And he was getting Joya some frosting, because Joya likes eating canned frosting with graham crackers, right? It's just sounds good, doesn't it? Right? And it was 11 p.m. at night. Trevor was in shorts and a t-shirt, wasn't dressed up at all, and he walked past the frozen food section, and at the frozen food section was Jason and Allison Montano with their heads stuck in there looking at ice cream, I think. And Trevor was racing by, and he goes, hi, how you doing? And that's all Trevor thought was gonna happen. Hi, how you doing? And Jason turned around and goes, great, how you doing? And Trevor put on his brakes and said, if anybody ever asks me how I'm doing, I'm gonna go back and talk to him.
He even said, shoot.
Yeah. He goes, hi, how you doing? They go, doing great, how you doing? He goes, so he stops and goes, in his brain he went, dang. Because she's waiting for frosting. He turns around, starts a conversation, does his first meet and greets with him. That leg resulted in Montano's greening Tui Tupos. That leg resulted in Tui Tupos. So I guess what I'm asking is, are you serious? Are we really that afraid that you can't begin by just being good people that say hi and let that conversation go where it may? I mean, that may go nowhere. But at the end of the day, wouldn't it be better if people went, that's a cool guy. That guy's cool. Or that couple's cool. Even if you never dropped the message, even if you never told your story, and I believe you should at least try to get them to ask, you ask them what they do and they ask you what you do, if you understand the processes we do. And if they ask you what you do, then you're not the one that knows everything. You're working with the one. It's who you're working with, not what you're in. Because if you get into the what you're in, then now you got to answer questions you may not be prepared to answer. But if you just talk enthusiastically about the results that your upline or whoever you get to edify in that regard, man, this could be the simplest thing you've ever done, and you get to end the conversation anytime you want, right? You're not stuck. If somebody isn't nice, go get the frosting and go home. You know what I'm saying? I just want to normalize it, because I think you're all more capable than anything you think you're capable of. And it's just because if you haven't done it yet, is you're letting fear interfere with the greatest run you could have in the next handful of years, 2 to 5, 10 years. I don't know what it's going to take, but it's all going to be worth it when you finally figure out who you are, what you're in, where you're going, and you follow that path and find your vision.
And it all goes back to, like we've been talking about, whoever was in the pool with us. I was telling Amanda, I go, they're going to get so tired of me hearing me say, it goes back to the one thing. You can go from peak to peak to peak to peak if you're doing the one thing. If you're not doing the one thing, which is sharing your story, dropping the message, setting up those meet and greets, if you're not doing that part of it, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to start questioning yourself. You're going to start getting in your head. You're going to start thinking, is this worth it? Is this for me? You'll start doing all those things because you're not doing the one thing. And that one thing it's the simplest of everything.
Yeah.
to share your story. I mean, we couldn't not tell our friends, our family, our neighbors, people we worked with, we couldn't not tell them who we were excited about when we first saw this business. We couldn't not do it.
Yeah, we couldn't.
Yeah. That's why, so in 5 months, we'd sponsored 17 people because we had, I mean, we wrote a list. I told you, I don't know if I mentioned this last night, or I don't know is this a pool? I don't know. Where am I? But one of the things that we teach, which is what we did and what we were taught, is to write a massive list of everyone you know and everyone you know of. A massive list. And then you continually add to it as you see somebody, or your mind gets jogged by seeing a billboard or hearing something and you remember, oh yeah, that guy. And you just constantly add to that list. It's your sphere of influence of people for you to contact. And then you become purposeful on having those conversations, communicating, connecting, having those conversations. We went with people that we knew or knew of, right? We either played softball with them. We went to the gym with them. Some were family. We even have family that are banned from this business. I mean, it's gotten to that point.
Her brother.
My brother is banned. Cannot get in with any of you, any of us, anybody.
By the way, you don't want to sponsor her brother, so
No.
don't even get on that path.
But did that take away our dream? Absolutely not.
No.
You know, the first person, we had a neighbor that came over one night, and this is before we even knew that we were in. We didn't even know we were in. But he came over and said, so what have you guys been doing?
What's new?
What's new? And Glenn said, I don't know, we saw this Amway business or something. And he went, oh no. Oh, you guys didn't get in the Amway business, did you?
Suckered in.
And you're suckered in. I mean, he just went off. And we looked at each other and went, okay, well, we're going to show him. We're going to show him. And that first negative guy made us more determined and more confident and strong than if he would have been positive, probably. So we needed that for us.
His name was Gary, so I call him Gare for short, and I have not changed his name to protect the ignorant. That's what I say in my board plans, and everybody thinks it's funny. Still Gary, man. He was certain we were never going to make it in this business. And I'm the kind of guy, my mom even knows it, even though she goes a lot. I'm the kind of guy that when I decide, I'm going to do it. And you probably shouldn't try to tell me I can't do something, because I'm going to try to do it and then remind you what you said later. And I think in a sense, we all ought to have a little of that, even though you shouldn't go, you shouldn't run back and rub it in their nose, but sometimes it's kind of fun.
And it's incredible to think that it's free. It doesn't cost anything to say hi to somebody.
Yeah.
Do you remember that show? They had the Fear Something, and they pay people $50,000 to sit in a thing with tarantulas and do all the crazy stuff. And people were sitting there for 50 grand with tarantulas crawling over them. And you just say hi to somebody and tell them you have a business. Oh, no way, I can't do that. That's impossible. I'll go sit with the tarantulas.
And let me give you an example. If any of you in this room, when any of you in this room encounter something that happens in your life and it's like awesome, I guarantee you can't wait to tell a few people. In fact, you go to them and say, you're not going to believe this, what happened. I just met, or I just did. Why is that any different than having this attitude about this business that you just had this gift that you can't tell somebody about? I mean, if there's a sale on shoes, women can't wait to tell people. It spreads like wildfire, but you can't tell somebody about the results that somebody created, and you are in the process of doing the same, and wait to see what their response is, which may not be positive. It should be. They should go, wow, how does that work? Can I do that? And so you can't just repeat the words. You have to put some life to it, some passion behind it, some enthusiasm behind it, just as if you'd met your favorite actor or your favorite person that you thought you'd never meet, and you can't stop telling people about it. That's what I would do if I were you. That's what we did.
Yeah, that's what Danielle did when she met me.
What's that?
That's what Danielle did when she met me.
Yes.
So one of the things that's super inspiring. What are you guys laughing at? What's wrong with you people? That wasn't
Problem is, I can't hear. These monitors aren't on, so I can't hear.
Yeah, that's a great excuse. Great excuse, Glenn.
Yeah.
It does. Appreciate that. I don't know what they're laughing about. It wasn't a joke, guys. One of the things that's so inspiring is hearing about how certain contacts have led to the legs that you have. Can you tell maybe one of the other crazy stories of where you might have met someone and maybe didn't expect for it to turn out the way that it did through someone, or how that works?
Well, a couple stories, I suppose. We were new platinums with a couple downline platinums qualified under us. And Joy and I went to a restaurant in our town, and we sat down, and bouncing up to our table comes this very energetic, very lively, very spunky person, a young lady, Brenda, and she bounces over, and she's full of life, man. And I go, wow, man, if you were a business owner, you would be amazingly successful, or something like that. And she goes, oh, well, she goes, yeah, I do this job, and then I do catering, and I do children's swim classes. Just to tell me all the things she did, And she took our order and bounced away. And I got up to go to the bathroom, and I'm walking to the back in the back of the restaurant, and I passed by the waitress station, the server station, and she was typing in our order, I suspect. And I caught her attention. She walked over to me, and I go, no, really? I mean, I'm serious, man. With that personality, you should own your own business. Now, this is 25, 30 years ago, right? So I'm not necessarily saying, I was just getting a conversation started. And she goes, I would do anything as long as it wasn't Amway. Now, most people would melt. But I looked at her and I go, really? I go, so let me ask you a question. If you could walk away from all of those other things you mentioned, what difference would it make what it was? And she goes, you're right. It don't make any difference. A week later, we're at her home meeting her husband. And if I could show you a picture of her husband, he was a tool and die guy who wore a one-piece factory jumpsuit that said Jim and Corona Clipper, because he made tool and die clippers for the Corona Clipper company. He had grease in his ears, his eyes, his nose, his beard covered his face like this. He didn't smile, and he didn't talk. I mean, it was a weird plan. She was fired up, and he just sat there with his Corona Clipper hat on, his arms folded, just looking like this. And I'll be honest with you, those meetings bring more out of me than anything. I'll say more in those meetings, not mean, just more direct, stronger. Brenda was ready to go. Oh, and I back in the day when we had little cassette tapes, I slid them over in front of him, and I say, man, Jim, love you to listen to those tapes. He sort of went, and he passed them over to her and said, they want you to listen to these tapes. The very next morning, we left. I go, you guys will be great, because I think we're in a we business, not what I want to do business. I made them included, right? Regardless of his personality. I mean, he was a mess looking, okay? Underneath that, believe it or not, there's a dream. Believe it or not. I get a phone call the next morning, and the phone rings, and I didn't recognize the phone number, but I answered. I go, hello. I go, hello, is this Glenn? I go, yeah, who is this? He goes, Jim. I go, Jim who? He goes, Jim Gagner from last night. I go, I almost had to pick myself up off the floor. I go, you talk? And he goes, I got one question. Do you really think you can help me? I go, absolutely, 100% believe. They signed up. Now, what was interesting about that sign up was they came in our business a little bit later. We already had all these other legs that were professing to be our emerald leg, our third leg. In fact, our counseling sheet looked pretty amazing. We had a 4,000 leg. We already had 2 platinum legs. We had a 4,000 leg. They were going to be our next platinum. We had a 4,000 leg, another 4,000 leg, another 4,000 leg, I remember, and 2,500s and so on. And Jim comes in, and we take him to our first function, and again, his beard looked like this. But he was he wore a jacket at least, right? He dressed up a bit. I promise you, all those other leaders, right or wrong, they probably looked at Jim and went, did you see Glenn's new prospect? Oh my gosh. I wonder how long he's gonna last. So I gave Jim a little bit of extra time. He shaved, he had a beautiful smile, a beautiful personality. And I think I mentioned, if I didn't mention it last night, I think I did, how we broke our 3rd leg, resulted in breaking legs 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Had we not found Jim and Brenda, they were only about 5'4", a young, energetic, unbelievable couple, I'm not sure where we'd be today, but it energized all those. They all broke because they went, oh my gosh. They would go to Jim and ask, what are you doing? And Jim would go, everything Glenn tells me. That's what he would say. He was confused. Why aren't you talking to Glenn? Why aren't you asking Glenn what you should be doing? Because I just did, Michael's claim to fame, Michael and Tui Tupo's claim to fame is, he goes, look, we have a PDF that shows the process. He goes, he just does what the PDF says. That's why I say this business is so simple. It's on a PDF, what you need to do. Now, we didn't have PDFs back then, but I told Jim, this is what we're gonna do. And that ended up being a catalyst that exploded our business, all because somebody who would have done anything but Amway, I was able to say something strong enough back to her that caused her to go, it don't make no difference what it is. It could be Schmamway as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna build it.
Wow.
Legs. I mean, the final statement I'll make is if you just make yourself available, it's amazing where legs will come from. I mean, all of you are gonna have stories that aren't so perfect, where you go, man, that was the ideal meet and greets and ideal this, that, and the other. And boy, how I met them, I was fantastic. Some of them aren't gonna be that fantastic, but eventually, they love you, you love them, and it's a great synergy. And
because you believed in someone who maybe didn't believe in themselves. You
Right.
were a cheerleader of people, something Vinny always tells us.
Exactly.
And you changed their life, which is incredible. Maybe each of you just last statements of what everybody can walk away with going into this Amway New Year. Anything you tell your own team, if this was your team right now, coming out of your function with your last 4 minutes, what would you tell them?
Just got done talking, honey. Now it's your turn.
Oh my gosh.
I'll wrap up.
Okay. So what we tell our group all the time is you got to keep your dream big. You got to keep this business simple, and we're ready to run with you. Whatever you got to do. We want to communicate more. If you're going to lead, you're going to grow this year, you got to expect to communicate more. You got to expect to lead more. You got to expect to be doing more for people so that you can get in and do those meet and greets and, model for them. Man, now is the time to run. This could be such a huge year. And like I said, that there's something going on when lions lead lions. That's what I said last night. And what we have seen is people are, what do I want to say? They're hungrier. People are hungrier. They want to learn. They want to change. They want to do what's going to be the best for their family. I don't know. This is just, Amway's incredible. The stuff they were doing is incredible. It's caused all of us to level up and figure it out and rise up and tweak things. And one of the things you got to be as you're building your business is you got to be adaptable and flexible. This business has changed. We've been in for 34 years. There's always been changes. There's always been adjustments. There's been PV adjustments. There's been retail amount requirement adjustment. I mean, that's nothing new. We just got to be flexible and adaptable. And then we're positive and we own it. And we're an owner. We're gonna promote it. And so it's just, I don't know, just wrapping your arms around it and owning this business and not making excuses, keeping it simple, and just focus on the one thing. If it's not it's not worth it, right?
That's awesome. And I would add, you know, one of the most recent conversations we held with our leaders at one of our leadership functions was, you know, these last handful of years during the great toilet paper shortage of 2020, which I think is funny, but you've got to get back. First of all, remember why you got in, right? Remember that, so that you never get confused about what you saw and why you got in. And then I would encourage everybody to learn how to, while being coached and mentored, that privilege in my mind, I'm trying to encourage people to know it's your business. It's not mine. I happened to got in 34 years ago and resulted in you getting in at some point, but it's your business. You get to put your signature on it. And the question is, what do you want that signature to represent? Something that's massively successful? Or do you want it to just be something that year after year, it just doesn't go anywhere because you didn't take ownership of it being your business, irrespective of what your upline may or may not be doing? I think this is a very healthy time. Amway's great. The system you are a part of is fantastic. But I would encourage you to drive your business, not just be a great part of a great part of this amazing system that you have. A great part of your upline, a great part of the system, a great part of Amway, and be recognized as you all deserve to be. But in order to do that, you got to drive the business. That means whatever needs to be done, you are on it. You come into these functions with your calendar booked. You come out of major functions with your calendar booked. You know, you may not have done it this time, but the next major function you have, the greatest thing is to take all this information and all this energy and all this emotion and put it into, you know, meetings, right? Coming out of a meeting like this, if you don't have anything to take it, it gets frustrating by Thursday. And people kind of, believe it or not, you can come out of a function like this and by Thursday you've already got, you know, post-function depression. So do yourself a favor. Lead, drive, build your business, and do it with a lot of love, a lot of grace, high standards, but grace, and allow people to go, that's going to be awesome. Let's do that together, and learn how to build a we environment rather than I'm doing this is what I'm doing. Include everybody and make sure that you're not espousing your dreams all the time. You know what your dreams are, but you're finding out what your downline dreams are, and you're keeping those in front of people. And you cast the vision for your organization as it relates to being a part of your upline's organization. And we just didn't talk. We went to work and did it. I would encourage you to do that this handful of years that are coming up, and you will forever change the momentum in your business for sure. Hope that helps.
Well, thank you guys for coming.
Thanks, Dennis.
Taking the time, your wisdom, you shared your hearts. Man, there is not a lot of diamonds, any speakers that I know of that come in and serve and go by the pool and give the way you guys have given this weekend. You changed so many lives. We appreciate you. You made history. Please resurrect your applause one more time for Glenn and Joya Baker.